In this lesson, we will continue talking about conditionals. We already wrote a simple conditional structure in the previous lesson. Now we're going to make it more complex. We learned that the if structure is a logical structure. It evaluates Boolean values to decide whether executing blocks of code or not. We are now going to create a program to evaluate the grades of a student and see how we can test multiple conditions using nested if structures. The first thing we will do is ask for grades of two tests made by a student. So grade 1 and grade 2. We are also going to ask for the number of absences which is going to be an integer value. We're also going to need the total number of classes so we can calculate the attendance rate. Now that we have all the inputs, we can calculate the average grade, which is going to be grade 1 plus grade 2 divided by 2. The attendance is going to be the total number of classes minus absences divided by the total number of classes. Now that we have our calculations done, we need to output the result of that student. So the rules are, grades are 0 to 10, and students need an average grade of 6 or higher to get approval. Students need an attendance rate of 80% or higher to get approval. There will always be multiple solutions for the same problem. So let's start with one solution that is going to use nested if blocks to solve the problem. So let's start by checking if the average grade is equal to or greater than 6. If this is true, we don't know if the student was approved yet, because we still need to check if he had more than 80% of attendance rate. So inside this if structure, we're going to open another if structure. So inside here, we're going to check if attendance is greater than or equal to 0.8, which is 80%. So if we get inside here, it means that the average grade is higher than 6 and the attendance rate is higher than 0.8. So that means the student was approved. So let's print the student was approved. If that's not true, we can print the student has failed. Let's write the same way. Has been approved and has failed. Now we still need another else that is going to be part of this first if structure. So in this case, the student has also failed. We can still do some improvements, but first, let's test if this is working. So let's try 7, 2 absences in 20 classes. In this case, the student has been approved, which is correct. Let's try it again. This time, let's try 5, and again, 2 and 20. This time, the student has failed because the average grade was less than 6. Let's try one last time. Let's try 8 and 8. And now 10 absences in 20 classes. So the student has failed because the attendance rate was lower than 80%. So this way, we just solved our problem using nested if structures that are if structures inside if structures. Now, it would be a bit better if we knew the reason why the student has failed. So let's complete this program. So in case we are in this else statement, it means that the average grade is higher than 6, but the attendance rate is not higher than 0.8. So in this case, the student has failed due to an attendance rate lower than 80%. If we get to this else statement here, it means that the grade is lower than 6. So we know that it was due to the grade, but we don't know about the attendance. So we're gonna have to write another condition here. So in this case, we're going to start an elif, and if we get here, it means that this test has failed. So the average grade is lower than 6. So in this case, we just have to test attendance again. And if the attendance is higher than 0.8, we know that the student failed due to... Now, if we get to this point, it means that the grade is not greater than 6 and the attendance rate is not greater than 0.8. So this means that the student has failed due to an average grade lower than 6 and an attendance rate lower than 80%. Now, before we test this, let's just print the average grade and the attendance rate before giving the result. We can round it to 2 decimal places. The attendance we can multiply by 100 because it's in the form of 0 point something, from 0 to 1. So we're going to multiply by 100. Then we are going to round it and we're going to convert it to string. So we can concatenate with a percent sign. Let's see if this is working. So let's try 7, 7, 2 absences in 20 classes. Seems to be working fine. Let's try 7, 7, and 10 absences in 20 classes. Cool. We should always test all the conditions. So now let's try 5, 5, 2, and 20. And the last case, which is going to be for both reasons, so 4 and 4, 10, and 20. Now we have a working example. There are still some problems with our program, but I will talk about them and teach you how to fix them later in this section. In the next lesson, we will learn how to use less lines of code for the same program by using the AND and OR operators. I'll see you then.